As the LGBTQ plus community ages, they encounter unique challenges that are often overlooked. Our guest today is an author and professor who will shed light on these issues and offers insights into what the community needs as they navigate aging with grace and dignity. Professor Cris Beam is the author of a number of books on family, empathy, and the journey through different stages of life. Cris Beam, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so
I'm glad to be here.
we're excited as well too, and I wanted to ask you, what are some challenges that LGBTQ plus folks face as they age that maybe the straight population doesn't encounter?
Well, there are a lot. I mean, first of all, we don't know all of them because this community isn't studied very well. But when we do look at it, the picture doesn't look so great. We've got significantly less savings than our straight counterparts. We're 20% less likely to access government things like services like housing centers, meal programs, and so on. We're less likely to go to doctors. We're less likely to have health insurance. And so we have more medical conditions that pile up. And then there's the biggie, more of us live alone. So we have the isolation and the loneliness and all of the psychological and emotional problems that engenders.
And to that point, can you tell us briefly how each of these challenges intersects with larger systemic issues?
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem is we don't necessarily go to the doctors at the same rate because the medical community, for example, as one of your earlier guests talked about, the medical community isn't trained to be sensitive to our circumstances. So the medical conditions pile up as we age, and many of us are having children, but not at the same rates. So we don't have the same built-in care that the rest of the culture presumes often. And we haven't been promoted for jobs and accrued savings at the same rates because of homophobia. So there's this structural cultural issue of homophobia and transphobia that keeps us from saving. And the isolation happens in a way because we become more invisible also as queer people as we age.
And you referred to the idea of being doubly erased as you age. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself. I mean, I think this has been written and talked about a lot. I mean, as a woman, you become more invisible as you age. I mean, people just don't see you as vibrant and vital as a contributor to society. They imagine you primarily as somebody's mother or grandmother solely. They sort of write you off. And if they don't see you anymore as a sexual object, it's really hard to be seen for your sexuality. If you're not seen for your sexualness, you can't be seen for your sexuality. And if you've lived in a different kind of way than as somebody's mother or grandmother, you feel sort of doubly erased.
And let's talk about, I mean, for older generations of the LGBTQ plus community, adults had to remain closeted or they were less vocal back in the day. So how does someone now entering midlife find role models, or is there opportunity to style themselves as role models for future generations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's really important to remember that just a few decades ago, being queer was a crime. And so we have the generations before had to remain closeted. That was really life-saving. And so the generation now is the first generation to really demand rights and to say, look at us, we're aging and we need to be supported. And there isn't necessarily a role model above us who has done this before. And also there aren't role models in media. There are older people in media, but there aren't queer older people. We really don't see it at all. There are only, I can name maybe a couple of movies. And so we have queer people on TV, but they're younger people. So we don't have a lot of places to look.
And needing that representation and seeing someone that you identify with. And as we talk about aging in the LGBTQ plus community, let's talk about retirement. What steps do retirement communities need to make to become more welcoming and affirming places?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, there are fewer than a dozen that specifically cater to the LGBTQIA plus community, so there aren't really a lot, and they to my point earlier about finances, not a lot of people or only a few people can afford them. But the real problem is only 18% of long-term care facilities nationwide have non-discrimination policies built in. So we need real training there.
Yeah.
We need real training to support people that are coming into just general long-term care facilities.
Yeah, especially if there's very limited resources. So what can we do? What organizations should we be aware of? What can we as a community do so that there are those resources made available for aging LGBTQ plus members?
That's a great question. There's an organization called SAGE, which is a really great organization. They're a national advocacy group for LGBTQIA plus elders. They do a good job advocating, researching, doing some programming for older adults. They do some programming in just a few cities, but they have a national hotline, for example. But I think more generally, we need to remember that LGBTQIA plus people are part of our communities, and they need to be listened to. They need to be represented in our media, in studies. We need training in medical settings and community settings and so forth, so that there's just more care all around. And I would say that curiosity, too, remembering pronouns, asking about families, remembering that families may not be the general mother, father, sister, brother kind of system, that goes a long way.
This is all very helpful information. Cris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about this and to get the conversations going. That's where it all starts. Thank you so much. I'm going to let our viewers know where they can learn more about you. To learn more about Cris Beam's writing and teachings, you can go to crisbeam.com.